St. Louis-San Francisco Railway 1522, or just Frisco 1522, is a two-cylinder, simple, Class T54 482 mountain-type steam locomotive. She was constructed by Baldwin back in 1926 for the St. Louis and San Francisco Railway, and she was a part of the third order for her class, designed to handle heavy passenger and freight services along the Frisco's eastern and western divisions. She had a top speed of 70 miles per hour, with a tractive effort of 54,085 pounds. She and her sisters were very well liked by crews, as well as the dispatchers and the maintenance personnel. They were incredibly easy to work with and good for all purposes. You could literally put her on any train and she would do fine. They were incredibly flexible engines. When World War II began and traffic demands ballooned in size, she, as well as 15 of her sisters, were actually upgraded with booster engines, as well as boilers that ran at 210 psi, up from their original 200, and 69.5-inch drivers. This increased their tractive effort to 56,380 pounds of force, though if they applied the booster, that would spike to 65,550 pounds, and they could then hit 90 miles per hour. It was a solid upgrade for them, but they didn't serve very long in that form. Frisco had already been experimenting with diesels in the early 40s, and by the end of the decade they began the process of converting all their operations to diesel. The change for them was actually pretty quick, and all steam locomotive operations ended in February of 1952, though a handful of engines were kept in reserve, but even that practice was discontinued in 1956. As for 1522 herself, she was originally removed from service in 1951, but she was not scrapped, fortunately. She was actually selected for preservation by the Frisco. They chose to keep her around, and in May of 1959, she was actually donated to the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri, where quite a number of steam locomotives that I've talked about before have wound up. It's a place of safety for them, where they can be viewed for future generations. But 1522's story doesn't stop with her just sitting idle, though she would remain still for nearly 30 years. That was until September of 1985, when a new non-profit organization, known as the St. Louis Steam Train Association, decided that they wanted to restore 1522 to operational condition. The organization handled themselves very well at the time. The work was completed by April of 1988, and in October of that year, she made her inaugural run. And in May of 1989, she made a run to Moberly, Missouri. During the NRHS annual convention in June of 1990, she would pull a 22-car excursion over Rolla Hill, and she was alongside other legends for the event: St. Louis Southwestern 819, Norfolk and Western 1218, and Union Pacific 844. She actually did a doubleheader with 844 after the convention was completed. In June of 1994, she participated in that year's NRHS annual convention in Atlanta, Georgia, and performed another doubleheader with Norfolk and Western 611. They traveled from Birmingham, Alabama to Atlanta. The following year, in June, 1522 was the special guest of the annual Haymarket Heyday, and did several excursions between Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska. However, on May 17th of 1999, she suffered an accident. She derailed on a Y in northern St. Louis. She was only on a test run following an overhaul that had lasted 18 months. And the accident wasn't really her fault. A rail actually overturned onto the fireman's side as she was moving onto the Y, and this caused extensive damage to her running gear, but she was repaired with the help of the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum, and she did return to service a few months later. In June of 2001, she was invited to pull the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Annual Employee Appreciation Special, which actually included a historic tour through the state of Texas. She was also invited to pull several excursions for the 2001 NRHS Annual Convention, which was held in St. Louis of that year. But unfortunately, into 2002, it would be announced that 1522 was going to be put back into retirement. And the reasons were mostly financially related. For one thing, there were increased insurance costs for steam locomotives, and that was really holding a lot of these kind of operations back. But in addition, 1522 had started suffering frequent flu failures, and it was starting to get really expensive to maintain her. New FRA regulations did require that an active steam locomotive must be inspected and retubed every 15 years, and the SLSTA just could not afford to do that for her. Between September 28th and the 29th of that year, they did give 1522 a few last runs as farewell excursions, and then she was placed back into retirement at the museum. So what's the future like for 1522? Is she ever going to run again? It's hard to say, but as of now, it doesn't seem very likely. She is safe, which is nice. She's at a museum, well taken care of, and in shelter. She's definitely not going anywhere, but as for running her, that's a bit difficult. The museum, of course, has been asked about this, and according to them, it isn't possible. Which, well, maybe not with that attitude. But it is more accurate to say that it is financially unfeasible. See, the big issue with 1522 as of now, according to sources, is that her flue sheet is really badly damaged. So badly damaged that it straight up needs replaced. It cannot be just repaired. As such, one would have to be fabricated for her, and then new flues would be needed. Naturally, fabricating a new flue sheet for a locomotive that dates back to 1926 is not a cheap thing to do. It has to be custom made. And that's not including the other work she may need, as well as the insurance and fuel costs associated with running her anymore. It's just an incredibly difficult thing to do. So unless a wealthy private donor steps forward and says, hey, I got like $5 million and I want to run her, I can't imagine 1522 going anywhere. But in a way, that's a good thing. She's not going anywhere. She had 2 amazingly successful careers, and she still remains a major exhibit at the National Museum of Transportation. People can still go there and see her and appreciate her. It's not as though she's sitting outside, forgotten or something. She's safe and loved. And while I'm sure plenty of us would like to see her run again, when it comes to preservation, we do have to take what we can get sometimes. And maybe it's best that 1522 just be allowed to enjoy a happy retirement. And with that, a special thank you goes to all my underwater train finders, Some Dude 267, Orange Glass, Benjamin Owens, Anzac A1, Arthur Roy, Brian, Jack Carson's Aurora Videos, Lord Off 444, A Person 723, Ro Hudson 2860, Isaac for 1405, Charles Kwiatkowski, Matt Weaver, Tom Red Lion, NS Productions 8104, Wheeljack 8401, Rescues Greyhounds, The Baxter, Caleb Crosswhite, Andrew Bowen, Josh Johnson, Caleb Brainwaters, Prez Drenton, Master of None, Travis Stalinsky, Jared Brussel, Joshua Long, Tommy Rossini, Ben McCullough, Panzer Kitsune 131-232, Mark Holding, Dr. Racer 78, G Wiz, Mr. Terrevel, Liam Wright, Hayden DeGrow, Metal for Life Guy, Battle 604, Hannah Bird, Railroad Preserver 2000, No, Eric Hutton, Williard Conklin, Kurt Forkham, Ohio Trucker 1, Mitchell Cole, and of course, my dad. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fun farewell.